some more of the same, Charlie. Well,
Ready? Hit it.
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ouch, Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
Well, hello. Yeah, that's me, Charlie. And talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: politics and religion. One decides what life is going to be like here on earth, the other one decides what it's going to be like when you leave it. Kind of makes it important. And that's why it's called Do Not Talk, because that's all I've been told. Oh, don't talk about those things. You know what? Sit down. The adults are talking now. Yeah, we should be talking about those things. We should have never stopped. That's how we became the silent majority. And I hate that. I hate that moniker. I hate that name. I'm not going to stay silent. And I'm courageous is contagious. That's what I like to say. Courageous is contagious. Not that I'm all that courageous, but at least I'm willing to step up and go, hey, stop looking at that shiny thing they're pointing at and start looking over here. Brian Mock is my guest today on Do Not Talk. Brian Mock. Oh, that's who's that guy? Name sounds kind of, he's a musician. He's got a video I want you to see about his experience with January 6th, 2021. Yeah, he's a J6er, as everybody calls them. I was watching CPAC when you were on, Brian. I saw you up there with, what's his, let's see, I know Mike Lindell was part of it too. There were four of you up on stage, and one of them was, this kind of famous guy. What's his name? He's got a big talk show. Bannon. You were up there with Steve Bannon. That was fantastic, brother. That was extraordinary. And to hear the crowd lose their minds when you started sharing your experience and what happened, I was so happy for you, because I know that because of very tyrannical actions and your willingness to speak honestly about something I don't hear a lot of and I've had a lot of J6ers, as you're called, on my show. One of them, Eric Christie, Patrick Whale. There's been like 5 I've had on. And they don't talk about the guards and the staff like you do. And I don't know if it's because they're afraid to really talk about all that, or maybe I just didn't ask the right questions, but you don't hold back. And I love that, because that is a truly wicked place, that jail in DC. It is, it can't stay. It's got to go. It's got to be completely cleaned out. There needs to be some serious takedown of that whole thing, because how they treated you was so appalling. Let's first of all, I want everybody to watch this video that you recorded. It's your song. You wrote this, and it's very powerful. Check this out. Give me a second. I'll fix this in editing. I might have to, my apologies, Brian. Excuse me. I'm not quite sure what I'm encountering here and why it's not allowing me to share. So here's what I'm going to do. I will run, for everybody watching live right now on Facebook and YouTube, thank you very much for your patience. Some things happen when it comes to technology. I'm not able to share this video with you right now for some reason. But I will, in post, as they call it, when I'll take this interview and I will add it in, and it will be part of the show that's going to be on Rumble, rumble.com/DoNotTalk. So that's a little insider trading info for you watching right now on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you for your patience. Go to Brian Mock's YouTube page. That's the best place you can watch it for yourself. But I will include it in this show, Brian, okay?
Thank you,
So
sir.
let's pick it up like as if that has aired. And I'm sorry I couldn't show everybody watching live right now because it's very well done, very powerful. You did a great job. Okay, let's pick it up from here. 5, 4, 3. Dude, let's take it from the very beginning. That day, and maybe even a day or two before that day, when President Trump himself said, I'm going to do a speech right there at the Capitol building area. I think it was about, what, half a mile away, I think, something like that, where he actually
Yep.
gave his speech. And and it was an hour late, I understand, getting started because of all kinds of problems. There were like 1 million people there who showed up.
Yep. It was
A
insane.
lot of people wanted to go to the Capitol because they wanted our voices to be heard outside that building of we're watching. And we want to make sure you're not going to try and pull any more shenanigans in this election. Vice President Mike Pence could have and should have done the right thing and said, there's questions in this. No, we're sending it back. No, we got to do this again. And that's spelled out in our Constitution. But that was not done. But because the speech was an hour late, and then people showed up, and were you at his speech first? Were you there for that?
Yeah. So initially, when we showed up, we were down at the Ellipse, down in the White House, and when we got there, like 6 in the morning, there was already hundreds of thousands of people there. We thought we were early, and apparently we should have been there like six the day before. So we had people wrapped around the entire Washington Monument trying to get in. So we knew we weren't getting into the actual Ellipse. So we hung out there. Some demonstrators came up. We had a few people come walking up there, and it grew up. I always tell people there was 1 million people there. I grew up in the DC area, and I've never seen that many people in Washington. It was insane. But everybody was peacefully assembled. We're all there, having fun, meeting our new best friends from all over the country. People are playing music, they're praying, they're chanting, they're singing. um, it's a party like atmosphere, but we're obviously pissed off about the election, and wanting to hear people speak and making sure that this doesn't happen again, as you just stated. And the entire goal there was to have Congress look out and see 1 million of us outside those windows and hear our voices, hear us praying, hear us singing, because we
Holding
were
them
there to.
accountable.
Yep. Well, we were there to support them. There was over 100 congressmen and senators who said that they were going to vote to decertify the election. And we were there to support that. We wanted that to happen. So the idea that we stopped Congress is absurd. We wanted it to proceed. We wanted them to show the objections. We wanted them to show evidence of why they were objecting and to send them back to the states per the Constitution. So we were there to support law and order, and the proper way for this to happen was to have those go back to the states. It's in the Constitution for a reason. And I know it's a crazy idea that some of us out here have read that document, understand what it's about, and when we want it used, we stand up and support it, using those other amendments that are in the Constitution to do so, um, until they open fire on us. Yeah.
And
Um,
they did. They did. And that has not obviously not been reported in the mainstream media. They were firing rubber bullets into the crowd. They, as in Capitol Police and who knows who all was doing it, but they were
oh, I know who
firing
all.
rubber bullets into the crowd. And it
Yeah.
was
So
pissing you all off.
so when we first walked up, right over my shoulder here, um, we walked right up. Nobody messed with us. Nobody bothered us. We came up to the Lower West Terrace, and when we got there, it was a war zone. Now, people go, well, why didn't you turn and walk away? Well, you couldn't see what was happening. Once you got
No.
up to the actual Lower West Terrace, uh, there's an area there. You're looking uphill. So as you're walking up the hill, you can't see what's going on with this group. You see a ton of people, and so we walked on this walkway. Me, a friend of mine, and a girl, a friend of mine, jumped in the vehicle like last minute and came with us. And so the three of us walked up here. We spill out on the Lower West Terrace, and all of a sudden we've got cops beating the crap out of old men and women. There's people with blood all over their face. All of a sudden, the explosives start, and there's an
The
hour and 20
flashbangs,
minutes.
right?
Yep.
Flash
So an
grenade.
hour, yeah, there's an hour and 20 minutes that they have hid from the general public. So the mainstream media and the Jan 6 Unselect Committee have literally hidden 120 minutes from the record. And in that 120 minutes, what you'll find is that when we walked up as a group and stood face to face with the Capitol Police, there was no fighting. They make you believe that this violent mob just showed up, ran roughshod over the police, and broke into the building. This isn't Trump supporters. We don't do that crap. Nobody does. We didn't just show up one day and go, okay, we're going to install Trump as a dictator, and come hell or high water, it's happening. All us violent, crazy right wing extremists left our guns and ammo at home and brought flagpoles and grandma. It's totally absurd as a premise that that's what we were doing. So we walk up on the Lower West Terrace, and there was three guys that got in a little pushing match with the Capitol Police. That's how this all started. Um, the Capitol Police were trained for this. There's a unit, a civil disturbance unit. Those are the guys that wear, dressed up like stormtroopers. They're trained for this because there's demonstrations every week up here at the Capitol. So they know how to handle it. They know how to de-escalate things. And they didn't really need to, because there was nothing to de-escalate. The couple of guys that got in a little pushing match, and we still don't know why, it had been resolved. The Capitol Police were fine, but then one officer, someone in the brass, made an order up top at another level to start shooting on the crowd. And those are the videos that a vast majority of the public had never seen, where they shot rubber bullets, they shot pepper balls indiscriminately into the crowd. And then the Metro Police came down the stairs and started grabbing barricades, bike racks from underneath of the scaffolding, and brought him out and started shoving him into people, while others were indiscriminately tasing people. And then that's when they started actually hitting people. They broke out the munitions, the flashbangs, and started throwing them in the crowd. It caused 2 heart attacks. 2 men died. People were getting blown up and literally lit on fire. Meanwhile, it's compressing. So everybody's coming up and they're pushing back. And you've got this tight little fishbowl where all this is going on. And then they started with the tear gas, which they deployed improperly. Based on the wind, they end up gassing themselves, pissed themselves off, and then took it out on us even further. And
Right.
so for all this time, we're begging them to stop. And then finally they beat the crap out of this guy, like Rodney King style. And the crowds, and another woman that they knocked down the stairs, an elderly woman, they kept blasting with a shield, sprayed her and knocked her flying down some stairs, which pissed off the crowd and incited them. Basically everybody's like, you need to leave. And at that point, they took away the barricades that they were using as weapons, and the police started leaving. So once they did, then they went and left, and that's when I picked up my alleged felony.
Which was?
So they claimed that I had assaulted an officer. What actually happened? Now, I did push a shield. What had happened is I was actually leading officers out, and through the whole time, I started pointing at this door that they were leaving through, because they had left a bunch of their officers behind, kind of, I guess, I don't know, holding the line, for lack of a better term. It wasn't even that. People had fallen back, and there were a couple of them that were trying to get their last licks in on us. And so what happened then is, I had gone along. I tried to pick up an officer, actually missed picking him up. I never even actually touched him. And cop came in and hit another guy in the head, so I backed away. That was their alleged first assault. They took a still frame picture of my foot off the ground and claimed I kicked him, which I later proved in court never happened. But that was one of their first fake charges. At one point, I got hit in the head with a flagpole, and I reached up and grabbed it, and a little piece broke off, and I threw it into an open area where no one was. Well, when I turned down their plea deal 3 years later, they came in and got a superseding indictment and called that a deadly and dangerous weapon, which enhanced everything that I was getting charged with, up to about a 20-year sentence from a 3-year potential sentence. So that was one of my other alleged crimes. I beat that. The judge actually laughed it out of court. I got pushed to the ground once, and because I put my hands back up while I was getting pushed down, and it happened to be an officer, I got charged with an assault and found guilty of an assault for getting pushed down. And then at one point, I came up at the very end. I was helping lead officers out, patted about a group of about 8 on the back, came to a line of 4 of them. One realized what I was telling him, was like, "You need to get out of here or someone's going to get hurt." Patted him on the back and came to the next guy,
And
and
that
he
was
threatened.
counted as an assault.
The pats on the back weren't, shockingly, but I came to the next guy, did the same thing. He threatened to shoot me. His hand came off the shield and came down to his side. And when he did that, I just instinctively hit his shield. Well, he was standing on another discarded shield, which he was off balance. And from what it looks like, he was already in the process of his foot slipping when I contacted his shield. It was a lot of bad timing. He slips and falls backwards. Well, to my right was Fox News, CNN, MSN, BBC, you name it, all lined up next to me. So they took it as their violent, quote unquote, violent image of January 6th, put it all over documentaries, all over the news. So suddenly I have this violent image of this crazy assault that is nothing. So they would take that little snippet and put it together with anything else that they could find over here, over here, over here, and try to make this whole false narrative about what was going on for the day. So it took them 6 months to build a fake assault off of this and use other ones to try to make this whole narrative.
Which was my
And
next question. They didn't arrest you until June. This happens
correct.
in January, and they don't arrest you until June. That would be why then?
Well, I had never gone in the building. I never destroyed anything. I had a number of people off some other people's Facebook posts turn me in. I wasn't hiding the fact that I was there. I never thought they would come after me for an assault because, as far as I was concerned, I never assaulted anybody. I wasn't trying to. Quite the contrary. And my son was one of the ones that had turned me in. My oldest son. I think at the behest of an ex-wife. So you can read what you want to read into that. Ended up calling the FBI on me. But that was back in January. It still took them 6 months to build a fake case. And even then, after they arrested me, so I found out I was on a list. They were calling people I knew to ask about me. And so I offered to go meet them at their field office. They said they didn't have a warrant, so they refused to talk to me. Instead, 3 weeks later, they came screeching up to my house at 6 in the morning, pointing at me
They
and
did. So
coming.
they pulled a Roger Stone on you. There's in mass. They show up, guns drawn, pounding on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's what they do to just add to that, instilling fear to where nobody else will ever even think about doing something like what you did, actually just showing up.
Yep, exactly,
Uh,
Charlie. And that whole point of this is I want to get across. Their whole goal was fear. It was not only to instill
mhm.
fear into us and get us to comply and roll over and take a plea deal. It was also to instill fear into you and into your audience and anybody out there that may dare to speak out.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
was it.
Let's talk about the morning of the arrest. You were at home.
Yep. I was getting ready to go out to a landscape job. I was
You,
vice
you live
president
in
of
Minnesota, right?
Yes, sir. Right in Minneapolis. I was vice president of sales and marketing for a lawn care landscape company I built up. I knew the guy for what, 12, 15 years. And when he knew all about January 6th, he was, it still is pretty hardcore conservative. When I told him about the list I was on, knowing that the FBI apparently was after me, and that I could be arrested. I wasn't really sure. I explained to him exactly what had happened, and he was fine with it. He talked to a lawyer, and he came back a day later and let me go. So I got fired before I was ever even arrested, and then so I went and immediately started my own landscape company. Uh, Went out, sold some jobs, and I was on my way back out to finish my first job, and we got a dump trailer, all my equipment's sitting there, and I walk out the front door, and they come screeching up, guns drawn, pulled me out of there. I think I freaked them out because I put my hands up. I was all compliant. I said, "What the hell took you so long?" I tried to come to you, and he said, "Well, that's not the way we do it." I said, "Clearly." And after a few minutes, when they realized who I was and I wasn't giving them any kind of a hard time, we started laughing and joking and having a good time. And they said, I said, "I got a box right inside the door with all the crap you're looking for." handed it all over to him, wasn't trying to hide anything. All of them thought that I would be, if not a book and release, at least, have to sit the weekend at most, go in front of a judge, and then I'd be home, which is exactly what should have happened and did happen according to the magistrate in Minnesota. But then they appealed it immediately to DC, put it in front of the chief judge of DC, a hardcore lefty activist by the name of Beryl Howell. She's evil. I mean, pure evil. She screamed at me in court, called me a leader in this, said I was single-handedly responsible for making America a laughingstock, and said that there were no set of conditions that could be met where the general public would be safe if I was released. And she ordered me held pre-trial in the DC gulag. So I was shackled hand and feet, flown Con Air across the country, and thrown in a cell. I was initially supposed to be with all the other Jan 6ers. We were supposed to be segregated. They didn't do that with me. They threw me into Gen Pop, told 120 black men that I was racist, dangerous, and extremist, and then let us mingle. So they were trying to get me, at the very least, beat up, at the worst, killed. I did have to fight until I actually stood up for a young black kid against guards who were abusing him. And then I became a little folk hero in there. And I asked him at one point, I said, is anybody else going to mess with me? I said, no, man, you're just light skinned. You're good. So turned the tables on him there, fired my attorney, represented myself, and started the process of trying to defend myself against the full weight and might of the federal government, except the jail was denying us.
That's
all of
always
our
part of
rights.
the plan too, is to ruin you financially. But you
Yep.
representing yourself, that changes things, and they hate that.
Oh yeah, they hated me. They tried everything. I was heavily singled out because well, one, I didn't take any of their crap. They were denying us access. When I say taking all our rights, we were supposed to be separated into our own pod, and they eventually did get me there. In that pod, unlike the rest of them, they would not let us have religious services. They would not let us have haircuts. They would not let us have access to video visits with our family, in-person visits. They would not allow us any access to our discovery. They would not allow us access to a law library. So I had no legal materials while I'm representing myself.
But yet,
Uh,
everyone else in general population had those things afforded them, but you were not.
we were singled out and denied that. Whenever anybody else would leave the units to go out to, let's say, rec. Well, first off, they didn't let us have rec for almost a year. When they did, other people would just walk to rec.
By rec, anyone who doesn't know, you're talking about recreational activities, being able to go out in the courtyard area there, and actually they have weight machines and stuff like that, and they were not allowing you to do that even.
Yeah, well, and actually here it's crap. You got a plot of grass and a basketball hoop. So the first time I saw grass, I laid down in it because I hadn't seen grass or the sunlight in, like, I don't know, 6 or 8 months at that point.
They put you in solitary confinement, didn't they?
Yeah, a number of times. So in the course of a year, I eventually did make bond. I was one of the only guys that got out on bond. By the grace of God, the fact that I represent myself, there's no way that it should have happened. So I did get out after a year, and left a bunch of guys behind. But they did, through that process, tried to break me. I mean, they were successful a few times. I refused to actually sign over and say that I did what I didn't do. But their effort through all that was a couple of things. They threw me in solitary a total of somewhere between 5 and 7 months throughout the course of that year. The longest time was when I made a demand for my discovery and refused to go in my cell until I talked to a specific captain. The lieutenant came up, she sprayed me with OC spray.
What?
And then I was taken by the ERT team. I was beaten, and then I was thrown into solitary confinement for over 100 days straight. And for folks that don't know what solitary confinement is like, I always tell them, go into, put all your devices away, go into your bathroom. You're not allowed to use the shower, pretend it doesn't even exist, and then have people show up 3 times a day and throw you some crappy food in there, but don't talk to them in the process. They can open the door, slide it in, and that's it. Try that try it for a few hours of just being in there with nothing. You walk 4 steps, the 5th one you turn around. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, turn. And you do that back and forth, over and over. You try not to think about your kids. You try not to think about the spouse or the girlfriend that left you. You try not to think about your business being gone. You try not to think about your dogs being taken and gone. Your house, what's happening to it? Do you have any money when you get out? Do you have any things? Usually the case is no. So you try not to think about what you lost. You try not to think about the concept of time and how long you might be there. You don't have a concept of time. You have a window that's frosted over. And if you're lucky, you can see out of a little slit where it's peeling off the side, if you're real lucky. So your concept of time is distinguished by a glow behind you. And if you're lucky enough to get food 3 times a day, you can measure time that way. But rarely did they actually get it in 3 times a day. And when you'd piss them off, they would turn off the water in your cell for up to 3 days. So you try to stockpile water where you can. You try to stockpile any food where you can, because you don't know when if you're going to get it again. And you sit in there and try not to go insane, and which is impossible. Anything longer than 15 days by international standards is considered torture. And so yeah, I was tortured by my government, and the sole reason was to get me to sign a confession, to sign a piece of paper that said that I was guilty of assaults that I didn't commit. I was guilty of civil disorder in this riot that they created, and that Donald Trump was the reason that I did it. And if I would admit that Donald Trump was the reason that January 6th happened, they would give me a 30-month sentence. I would do 24 of those months. I had already been in there for however long. They would put me in a cushier spot and I could go about my life. And because I told them, F you, I'm not admitting to something I didn't do, they got a new superseding indictment and hit me with what now took my sentencing guideline range from roughly 3 years up to 20 years. As a message to everyone, do not try and fight us or we will take your life. And they failed. They blew it in court. I ended up with a 33-month sentence, even though the one charge I beat still left me a sentencing guideline range of about 10 years. But I earned the judge's respect. I didn't do a half bad job in court. Pissed off the prosecutors left and right. I proved that they were lying. It didn't matter. I was going to be found guilty regardless.
Yeah.
But I literally had a officer come in and say he couldn't say if he had ever been kicked. When asked if me or another man who they showed a picture of during that day, if he was kicked, who does he think could have been the one to do it? And he picked the other guy. He didn't even pick me out of a 2-man lineup as the potential one that could have kicked him if he was kicked. And then I proved that I would have had to have been 12 feet tall at the time that they are saying that I kicked this guy, all because they took a still frame picture of my foot off the ground. I proved there was no way that it happened. I was still found guilty of that assault. So the idea that we're all these violent insurrectionists, and I hear a lot of people on the right talk about, you know, touching, assaulting a cop is never correct, is never right. These guys were violent through all of this, and we shouldn't pardon those guys. You don't know what you're talking about, because this idea of this violence was manufactured. I'm considered one of the 81 worst of the worst violent offenders on January 6th. I never went in the building. I never damaged anything. And we're talking about a 5-minute span where they took a picture of my foot off the ground, and then I made contact with one shield with my bare hands. That represents the worst of what happened January 6th. What you've seen as a compilation of all these little clips that were taken together, literally by Hollywood directors, and put into this montage in a way that created a story that wasn't true. It never happened. And we have proof of this. We have proof of all of it. And what I'm here right now, you can obviously see where I'm at. Instead of going home after my pardon, instead of trying to pick up my life and move on, which this has cost me over $1 million. This has cost me my career, my house, my family, friends, reputation. Instead of that, I got in the one thing that I owned was my truck. I kept that through all this and a little bit of stuff I had in a storage unit. And I drove across the country interviewing other Jan Sixers to get their story out and people who supported us. And I came back here to Washington to meet with lawmakers to demand one thing, actually two things. One, reform within the BOP and DOJ, but bigger than that, a true investigation into January 6th, because I have 20 to 30 individuals who are Jan Sixers and who are supporters and investigators who should be at the forefront of a real investigation of January 6th. Because until this shows up on C-SPAN and CNN and Fox News, and the American people are forced to look at what actually happened, that we, regular Americans, were attacked by our government, that they lied to you and created a fake narrative, compiling together all these different videos, and putting us in prison and torturing us so that we would roll over on our president. Until that story is told and the people are held responsible who did this, this is literally the single biggest conspiracy in U.S. history. I talk my voice hoarse every night, which you can tell. I've been here at CPAC doing nothing but trying to talk to people of power, of influence, who can get this investigation for one simple purpose. We don't care what you think about us. All we ask is that you look at the actual evidence, not what the talking picture box told you, not what you were told on your social media that was getting that we were all getting banned on. When people did try to put the truth out about Jan 6, it got
Oh, I know.
censored.
And I'm one of them. YouTube pulled
Yep.
down all the interviews I did with J Sixers.
All of it. We all got censored through the whole thing.
Yeah.
All we ask is for the truth. That can happen now. So that's my mission. I'm actually going to be going up to Loudermilk's office here, because that's where it's coming out of. So if all your people want to help in a real way, want to see the real truth about Jan 6, call up to Barry Loudermilk's office every day, every hour on the hour, as a matter of fact, and tell him to talk to me. Because until he does, this is going to be bullshit. This is not going to be the truth. If you want to see it, if you want to understand how evil this regime, this government has gotten, how tyrannical and corrupt it is,
Yeah.
wait till you see the stories that come out about what they did to me and my brothers and sisters on January 6th and the subsequent years after it. It will curl your toes. It should never have happened, and it should never happen again. And instead of going on about my life, I'm here making sure that it never
It
happens
will
again.
happen again unless there are severe consequences for the actions of those who perpetrated this crime against my own fellow citizens. Who's Loudermilk? Explain.
Barry Loudermilk's a rep out of Georgia. He's heading up the committee that is supposed to be hearing, have an actual Jan 6 committee, not the fake one that you had before. I'm down here to make sure that one, it happens, and two, that it involves our group of people. This isn't an organization. It's guys. It's regular citizens who either were Jan Sixers who have seen the evidence, because while I was in the gulag, they opened up the entire database to us at one point. So again, my case, some weird things happened in my case that are awesome. One of which, because I was representing myself, the judge would have me in almost every week in a hearing and want an update status, right? So we come in for the status hearing, and I go, I haven't got my discovery yet. Well, the prosecutor would say, well, no, we gave it to him. And I would say, well, no, you didn't, because I don't have it. And he would say, well, talk to the jail and find out. And the jail would tell her I have it. And I would tell him, no, I don't. So this went on and on and on for like 8 months. And the general counsel of the jail was ordered in. Well, a half an hour before that, they came in, they handed me a laptop, and I sign off that they finally gave me my discovery, because the general counsel didn't want to go into court and admit that they hadn't done it. And then when she did, she goes in there, goes, oops, it was just human error. Sorry. Okay. So, what they did then is the general counsel, and this is a little speculation on my part, is what I think happened is they went, I don't ever want to come back in for this stuff. give those assholes everything, right? So we had raised such a stink and been such a thorn in their side, that we had at this point had the marshals come back in and do a investigation, which resulted in like 400 other federal inmates being removed from the jail because it was such terrible conditions, but they left all of us behind. And so we had been such a thorn in their side that she finally, I believe, said, give them everything. And somebody screwed up and gave us everything and gave us full access to the entire evidence.com database of global discovery. So what I did was went, holy crap, look at all this evidence. And I poured through it. So we had to sign a protective order that said that we would not release this information in order to get our discovery. They wouldn't even give us our discovery unless we said we wouldn't release any of it to the public. Well, after getting tortured by my government for a year, I had a different opinion about that. So I took a flash drive. I smuggled as much information as I could out of that database, and I released it to the public when I got out. Now they don't know that till now, because screw them and their screw that right now. They want to come arrest me right now. Oh God, please do it. So I released this to the Epic Times. One of the things I released to the Epic Times, you can go find the article from about 2 weeks after I got out, coincidentally enough, was the ops manual that they had printed for that day, or actually 3 days. Well, Christopher Wray came into Congress and said we didn't have any undercovers there. Well, I had the ops manual that said, "Oh no, Christopher Wray, you did have them there, and
That
they
was a
could
complete lie.
Yep, and you can be identified by a rainbow bracelet on your left wrist." Well, Epic Times ran that story. It
And how
blew
the
up.
Antifa were knowing each other is they were wearing their MAGA hats, but they were wearing them backwards. That's how they were identifying each other.
Yep. And one of the interesting things, well, one, Christopher Wray was pissed because he had to go back in front of Congress and admit this. He actually put so much pressure on the Epic Times after this that they shut down and wouldn't do any more stories on the evidence that I had released. So I still have stuff floating out there. Some of it got out in different venues. There's a number of people that don't even know that a bunch of this stuff that was able to get out and get around the internet, and get in front of people from various sources was stuff that I had released while I was out. And I could never take credit for it up to this point. I don't even realize how much of it's out there. So a lot of the stuff that you know about Nancy Pelosi came from things I was able to smuggle out. Brandon Fellows is another guy that was in there that was able to get some stuff out. Jeff McKellop was one that they actually raided his cell because he was releasing information. They took every single piece of paper that he had in his cell because he was sending that off to the public. And I love them. Those of us who fought, we ended up in solitary over and over again, trying to silence us, and it wouldn't happen. So at this point, because we've seen that evidence, when I got out, I was looking for lawyers, and I interviewed with one. The very first group was representing 24 other Jan Sixers, and I told them about what I'd seen inside in this evidence, and they went, "What the hell are you talking about?" They hadn't seen it, and I had seen so much. They offered me a job within 15 minutes of the first phone call when I'm trying to hire them. And so at that point, I was one of the foremost experts on January 6th. Since then, there's people that I know that have seen more than I have, but very few. So that's why I want those of us who were in that situation where we had unfettered access to this stuff to be able to come out and go, look, the things that we've seen, literally nobody else on the planet has seen because they buried all this. We know it exists. You should be seeing it. Some of it Mike Johnson has and hasn't released, but there's others that show clearly what was going on. They show the undercovers. They show that people were working directly with police. They show police dropping handguns in the Capitol, handgun and their and the clips separately. Yep, they were setting up people to pick them up, and there were teams that came in that were specifically picking them up and pointing them. Their effort was to get somebody else to pull their own gun, figuring that there would be some
Concealed carry. Yeah.
do it. I had multiple people who I've talked to that were there on January 6th that said women walked up to them, opened up their purse, showed them a gun, and asked them if they wanted it. Like multiple people. throughout the crowd that said that the same story independently, because people started coming to me once I got out of the gulag and they figured out who I was, and what I had seen. They started coming to me with this information and telling me their stories, just because I was someone that wouldn't shut up and was vocal, and knew the truth about January 6th. They felt I needed to know more, and they kept coming to me with these stories. And I really wasn't in a position to do anything with it. I'm still fighting the government. I'm on pre-trial. I had a damn ankle monitor on, and they had limited my movement, so I couldn't get out and really fight the way I wanted to. But 2 years of pre-trial before my actual trial, and then I had to turn myself back into prison, where I've been for 9 of the
Were you
10
actually
last.
in prison or still in that DC jail, which is a big difference?
Yeah, no, I end up
Because they
going to
couldn't put you in prison until you were actually sentenced, correct?
Yep, I went through trial, went through sentencing. I had to turn myself back in, self-surrender to Sandstone FCI in Minnesota on August or April 25th of 2024, and I stayed there up until January 3rd, where because the 1512 obstruction charge got thrown out by the government, I appealed to the government, got a hearing, and went in and actually got time served. Which again, grace of God, like there's no reason that I should have been able to pull this off, but got time served on the 3rd of January and had to spend 17 days in a hotel room waiting for my pardon, because they actually wouldn't allow me to come back to the state of Minnesota.
Who were you pardoned by?
I was pardoned by Donald Trump, the single greatest president that we've ever had. And I would have said that up through the 20th. I say that because of what has happened over the last 4 weeks now. Um, he is doing exactly what we all hoped he would have done through the first term. Um, we have all of us scream, and I'm not even talking just libertarian or MAGA or any of that. All Americans have wanted transparency in our government. We have all wanted less and less government, and he's doing it. The only people that are protesting are doing it on behest of the actual criminals who are profiting from our corrupt.
That is the truth. There were some elected officials who showed up to try and make some noise and get some attention for you all who were incarcerated in that DC jail. One was Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think Matt Gaetz showed up, Ted Cruz, and they got a little attention. But they're the only ones who really showed up. And Eric Christie, when I interviewed him, while he was still incarcerated, he was allowed a 15-minute call. If you've ever tried to call somebody or talk to somebody who's in jail or prison, it's the weirdest thing. There's this whole explanation of what you're about to hear and who you are, and it's a recorded thing. And then you hear these beeps, and then next thing you know, Eric's on. But 15 minutes, boom, he was gone. And that's all he was allowed. And he had some kind of a gift card to where he could make this phone call because you had to pay for it.
Oh yeah.
And the information he gave me was atrocious. But one thing he said several times was Congress could end this tomorrow. Congress could end this tomorrow. What happened? Why didn't they? Did you see any of those representatives? Did you know they were out there?
Yeah, so I was in there when the first time that Marjorie Taylor Greene was finally able to get in. I think it took her about 6 months of trying. Matt Gaetz was not with her that day. Louis Gohmert was out of Texas. So they were the very first. I remember the day well. It was one of those, finally moments. They got there, were there over 9 o'clock at night. So every night at 9 o'clock, we'd sing the national anthem.
I know. I've heard the recordings.
Yeah. Started with
That was
Big O.
amazing.
It was great. The first time I heard it, I didn't cry, but I got damn near. It was pretty amazing. So she's there, and all of a sudden it's 9 o'clock, and we stop. Everybody stops, turns around, faces the flag. They outlawed flags in there, so we actually had to draw one every day. They took them away for the longest time. Finally, they gave in and let us have our hand colored flags, and it was somebody's honor every day to go up there was a different person every day, go hold up the flag, and we'd all stand, salute the flag, and sing. And it was a unified act of defiance, um, an opportunity to show love for our country, even
And a little
despite.
camaraderie to encourage each other.
Yep, absolutely. And so she was there for that. And I think it freaked them all out because all of a sudden we just stopped, turned, and at 9 o'clock, everybody stopped what they're doing and they sing. And the one that we get to, the line of our flag was still there. The still there, we screamed as loud as we could every time. The still there. Um, and it was so loud, we were told by other inmates that they could hear that like 4 floors below us. And so they all knew when 9 o'clock rolled around that we were singing, and we changed a lot of the culture of that jail. We got so many letters they had to hire 4 new people just to work the mail room. We saw, I mean, literally millions upon millions of letters coming in of
Well, I'm
support.
surprised that they let you have that because there were other things that you were denied that is absolutely criminal. Like you said,
Yeah,
you were tortured by our government for at least a year. And this is a over 3 year ordeal that has turned your whole life upside down. And I pray for you. I pray for your success. I pray for your safety and your family and your friends and all who are involved in this, that they can be lifted up and encouraged, because some have taken their own lives. Some that had their health ruined by the food, if you
oh
can
yeah,
call it that they were feeding you. Mostly carbs, really very little protein. Any protein you got, you had to buy yourself. I guess they have a little commissary. If you didn't have any money, you're screwed. And then we're talking like cans of tuna and stuff like that. But other than that, a lot of people develop severe health complications during their incarceration there because of the food they were giving you and denying you basic services just to stay clean. People turning into diabetics while they were in that jail and so on.
yep,
Did that happen to
absolutely.
you? You experienced that?
Had for the first time in my life, I had high cholesterol while I was in there, and the woman who was the doctor there even said, she goes, "Well, if this goes on, depending on how much longer you'd be there, because I told her I have an appeal or a bond hearing in, and I'm hopeful to get out." Says, "Well, if you don't, we'll see about putting you on medication. But when you leave, if you get out of here, a lot of times when people leave here, whether they're pre-diabetic or whether they have this high cholesterol, all of a sudden, it'll fix itself when you get out and get actual food." Is exactly what she told us. And I'm going, okay, so that this place is actually killing people, whether they do it physically by themselves, because I've watched it happen from cops. They've killed people in here. Um,
Oh my
they're going to
God.
do it with food. Oh yeah, they when I talk about torture, they have murdered people in here. I know this for a fact. I've watched them try to lynch. That's why I told you I became a little bit of a folk hero, because I stood up for this 19-year-old black kid against the guards who were trying to lynch him. And
What the hell?
oh yeah, that's where we are. Your nation's capital, a couple miles from this building right here. They are torturing and killing people. Um, that's what they do. That's what they do, and that's why I'm here trying to fix it. There are people that are in power right now who should be in prison. They know exactly what's happening. I'm here for BOP reform. I'm here for an actual investigation of January 6th, and I'm going to fight like hell. I'm going to be as big a pain in these people's ass as I was for those officers in there. And I was such a big piece of pain in the ass to them that they tried to kill me. So these guys have no idea what they're in store for. I did the first day that I fired my attorney, and I had to, or first, I guess, a hearing that I had with my prosecutor and the FBI. I walked in there and I said, "Well, here's the deal. You're trying to charge me with a bunch of BS crimes. I didn't do it. You know I didn't do it. And if you choose on persisting with this, I can assure you of a couple things. One, I'm the absolute worst person that you could have possibly arrested on January 6th. And I promise you, on all that is holy, there will come a time where you rue the day that you ever heard my name.
Oh, I
And
hope
that day
so.
is coming." Uh, I am winning on so many levels. Uh, God, the reason that I went pro se and represented myself was I met 2 guys in Oklahoma who had been fighting the government for over 10 years each. And they had heard my case and they said, you're intelligent enough. You should be doing this yourself. Your lawyer's going to screw you over. They already did. That's why you're here. Said, fire him, represent yourself. Let us show you a few things. And they did. And so I was, I still wasn't sold. I wasn't, I represent myself in court. Come on, I'm a landscaper. Kidding me? So I broke down when I was in, I had my own cell when I was in Gen Pop. They only opened it for 2 hours a day, but I'm in there and I think I'm going to die. These guys are going to kill me. So I broke down and just said, God, get me out of here. And he answered me. And he answered me in a way I didn't want to hear. He said, you have all the talents and abilities to get yourself out. I said, shit, man. I don't want to hear that. Like, send Superman, like send a super lawyer. Send me something right now, but don't tell me that I can do this myself. And so on faith, I walked out 2 days later, went into federal court and fired my attorney. A week later, when he scheduled the Feretta hearing to deem me mentally fit to be able to represent myself, on the transport over is when I met my first Jan Sixer, Brandon Fellows, who was the other guy that was defending himself pro se. And that's when I found out that there was a pod I was supposed to be in. And without that, I had no idea. And so everything along the way, God is blessed. Now, it didn't always work out the way I wanted or at the time, but literally every single thing he did that happened, he faithfully had his hand in. It's all coming full circle now. There were motions that I wrote that got denied back then that are now going to be used in the lawsuit. You saw me up there with Mark McCloskey, Steve Bannon, and Stuart Rhodes.
McCloskey, that was the other one up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
McCloskey, for those of you that don't know, became real famous back in 2020 when BLM came through his neighborhood in Missouri, and him and his wife were standing out with firearms protecting their home. He is now going to be part of the lawyers who are filing lawsuits against the federal government on behalf of all the Jan Sixers.
Thank
So we got some people behind us now. Now they get to hear our stories. So now I'm standing up with Stuart Rhodes, who is one of the most high profile people you're going to find with January 6th, even though he wasn't there. It's now coming around full circle. So the folks that I'm working with, all the things that happened, even at my resentencing, my case was the first one in 6 years that was able to get heard by the federal government because the DOJ and the FBI were preventing. So the BOP was not allowing people their First Step Act back in 2018.
BOP.
The Bureau of Prisons. Back in 2018, Donald Trump signed a law, the First Step Act. What it allowed was low-level offenders to earn 15 days per month off of their sentence as long as they were compliant and doing a certain programming, basically rehabilitating themselves and staying clean in prison. The Bureau of Prisons has conspired since then to prevent these men from actually getting and earning their time. They've been holding, at this point, tens of thousands of people illegally, months and years longer than they should. Now, all of these people have been trying to complain, but the courts have not allowed them to hear it. Until January 3rd of this year, my case was the very first one that was heard. Now, the only reason they heard it was because these idiots went a bridge too far, and the DOJ brought the 1512 obstruction charge against me, which they tried to use against Donald Trump. The Supreme Court threw it out in the summer. So then what I did was I asked for a hearing for resentencing based on the 1512. But I didn't argue the 1512. I backdoored it and argued my FSA. And I had a document that showed that I was supposed to be released on November 4th of 2024. I'm sitting in court 2 months past that date. And the DOJ tried to claim that I wasn't even eligible to be released for another year. The judge agreed that I was correct. And then the DOJ stood up there and said, Your Honor, you don't have jurisdiction here. This is an internal matter with the BOP, a bureaucratic issue. Now, Mr. Mock is not unique in this situation. If you were to go throughout the BOP, you would find thousands of men who are arguing the same thing as Mr. Mock, but it's a bureaucratic issue that you don't have jurisdiction on. And if you rule on this, Your Honor, it will open a Pandora's box to where now these thousands of men can now seek relief through the courts. And for that reason, you can't rule on it. Well, he did rule on it. He ruled on my favor and he gave me time served. And now that opens up the BOP. Not only it proves that the DOJ knew that the BOP has been illegally holding people. You've got collusion, you've got conspiracy, you got a whole mess of things here. But the fact of the matter is that now with my transcripts, I get to go after the federal government. It opens them up to a massive class action suit and shows the corruption. So again, you look at the faith. What comes from walking in faith? You know, they tried to break me. They broke me down to the point where I said, you know, God, get me out of here, help me. And he says, no, help yourself. And I did. It's crazy to step out and fire your attorney and fight the federal government in DC by yourself. It's crazy to grab a piece of paper, a pen, while you're getting beaten in solitary and keep fighting and filing motions. It's crazy not to bend the knee. None of what I did is suggestible in any way if you ever find yourself in that position. But I did it, and I did it on faith, and I'm being rewarded now. I have an amazing girlfriend at this point who we'll talk about in the future. You'll have her on.
Oh,
I have a cute, amazing puppy. Um, I I have been out here fighting and advocating for other Jan Sixers, and people are across America are going on to my Give Send Go, and they're donating their hard-earned money because
mhm.
they respect the fact that I stood my ground. But what they really want to see is someone fighting back against the system and continuing to do that. And
Because
they've
we
given.
feel so powerless. We don't know what to do, especially when our own elected representatives out here in California, where I am, I didn't hear Mike Kiley. I didn't hear Tom McClintock or Kevin Kiley, rather, or Tom McClintock or anybody else who are conservatives even talking about it. Even talking about it. Where were they? Why weren't they making some noise? Why weren't they calling attention? And it's because something you talked about earlier, the conservatives who were saying, well, if they showed up and they were doing violent acts and they actually went into the Capitol, even though I saw a video of guards, law enforcement waving people in, opening the doors, encouraging them to come in, like they suddenly got a phone call, let them in. We want them in. I saw that video. Thank God to Tucker Carlson and all that when they released all that video. Thank God for that. Before
It
he
was a
got
start.
fired from Fox,
Yeah. It was a
it was very powerful. But the point is, we got a whole lot of people on the right who are going, well, I don't know what they actually did, so let's just let it go through the courts. I'm like, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you people? What makes you think it's not going to happen to you next if we don't do something now?
They were doing it. You know, we're sitting there in jail awaiting trial, watching them put soccer moms on terrorist watch lists because they dared to stand up to the PTA and question their DEI madness. Um, yeah, you know, Tina Peters, we had to watch her go through what she went through.
Oh, this is
She needs
awful.
pardon right now. They need to storm the fucking Bastille and rip Tina Peters out of there. She absolutely needs to be released. Um, we need to stop expecting that these people that are part of the three-letter organizations, the alphabet soup, that are part of the courts, that unfortunately, in a lot of these cases, are law enforcement um, that are just going, well, we're just doing our job. I can't stand when I went through this with marshals. I had marshal after marshal after marshal telling me, we know this is bullshit. We support you. Well, I had this with guards once I finally made it to prison. Hey, we support you. They did shout out Trump 2024. And I'm going, wait a minute. You took a fucking oath to stand up against these people. And when something is, as Sheriff Mack will tell these sheriffs, you are the authority. You support the Constitution. You stand up. You're the guys who are supposed to go, wait a minute, no, 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 no. We don't play these games. You guys might play these games, but we support the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And right here, that represents all of the enemies against us right there. That's the corruption. Those are the enemies to our Constitution. So if you're supporting that, you're supporting domestic terrorism because that's what they are. So we need those people to stand up. We need you to not be scared. The way you do that is you support people who are out there fighting these fights. It's not like I'm the only one out here. You find those people and you call your congressman and you tell them that you demand transparency. We start with a real Jan 6 investigation because here's what it does. This is why Jan 6 is important. Jan 6 exposes the entire thing. Okay, that's 1,600 Americans that were persecuted for political reasons. This has never happened in our country. 1,600 that they made up fake charges. They made up a fake narrative. They gave it to the media, which was paid for by things like USAID. They're not, this is completely made up propaganda by these people right here and funded by them to create propaganda to put on the TV, the little talking picture box that most of you swallowed hook, line, and sinker. And I understand. Trust me, I've been there. But what I can tell you now from being on the other side is that literally everything you see on that TV is a lie. And I don't say that from like, oh, they kind of make up some stuff and don't get things right all the time. No, I mean, it literally is all a lie.
Well,
Everything.
if I may, to solidify that thought and that argument is the biggest lie that the media does is by omission. They literally just don't even tell you what the actual facts are. That makes them liars right out of the gate. That's the biggest lie of all, is never telling you these things that Brian is telling you right now. You've said things that have stunned me. I didn't even know about guns being left out for people to find, hoping that they would be picked up. And now we really got something against them. Now, if we can just start, who is that piece of shit who fired right into the face of Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt? Why is that scumbag still walking around free? What the hell was that all about?
He got a promotion and a medal. He got $150,000 for doing an interview with Don Lemon. And when he did that interview, he was asked if he thought that Ashley was armed. He said, no, I didn't know if she was armed or not. I didn't even know if it was a man or a woman. Are you kidding me? You shot an unarmed person that you couldn't even identify as a man or a woman? So that's number one. You probably don't know the name Lila Morris or Roseanne Boylan either. Roseanne Boylan was murdered by Lila Morris in front of all of us. They pushed a bunch of people on top of her. And then while she was laying on the ground, unable to breathe for about 8 minutes, she was already turning purple. And Lila Morris came over with a stick and beat her in the face so savagely, we watched her head cave in and the nightstick break. The official cause of death for Roseanne Boylan was an overdose. My case, yet again, in court, because I could call my own witnesses because I represented myself, no other person could get on the record that Roseanne Boylan was murdered by Lila Morris. Mine was the first. And I was able to do that because no other attorney would piss off the judges or attempt getting censured. The prosecutors tried to object to it, but we got it on the record. And the very interesting thing is when they did that, they were trying to get my witness impeached. His name is Tommy Tatum. You want to see all the videos that I talk about? Go to Tommy Tatum News on YouTube. You will find all the videos I talk about. You will see Roseanne
TOMMYTATUM.
Yes, sir. Go to that. He's a good friend of mine. I didn't know him before he interviewed. This man has fought for the truth there. He watched her get murdered in front of him. And he has screamed about it from the rooftops and nobody would listen. The interesting thing is they wanted to impeach Tommy Tatum. They wanted him to go in and commit perjury so that they could arrest him. And so all of the upper brass from the DOJ and the FBI showed up in the courtroom to listen to his testimony. They heard him state that Roseanne Boylan was murdered, that he watched it with his own eyes, that he knew the Capitol police officer who did it, identified her by name. All of the DOJ and the FBI heard it, saw it. So did the judge. So did the prosecutors. They did nothing about it, and they are complicit in the cover up of that murder. And what they've done as a result since then has promote Lila Morris to higher levels in as an officer. It's disgusting. There have been 4 murders of citizens that day. There were no murders of police officers. Okay, despite what Kamala Harris would have you believe, the injuries to officers were negligible at best. They want you to think that they were all assaulted. These officers were given high fives to each other. Fanone never had a heart attack. Fanone was never tased. Fanone sat in open in Congress right over here, committed perjury, flat out lied. We've caught him lying. We've caught Ganell lying. We've caught Harry Dunn lying. All of them profited financially from this and in their career. All of them. They sat and lied. It was a production. They hung out with Fanone was hanging out with Hunter Biden through the entire thing, and Sean Penn, who coached him on how to act at those hearings. It was all political theater for the American people. It was all propaganda and it was lies. This is stuff. I have video of them opening the doors that day. There's 2 giant main doors in that Capitol building. They are magnetically sealed and they are opened from a command center. There's a man who walks over to the doors. Nobody's inside the Capitol. He walks over, looks at the door, turns around and looks up at the camera, does this, and then the doors open up and people come walking in. Tell me how the hell that was anything other than planned. The stuff that I would show you that we've been able to identify was in there with a Green Beret who was special forces. He watched this. He had been all over Iraq and Afghanistan. He's murdered hundreds of people for our country. Okay. Done some of the most extreme things you could ever do with the CIA in Iraq and Afghanistan. He sat there and watched this video. And he said, "This is exactly what we do in other countries." And he watched this color revolution going on right on these steps. And he would pick out people and go, "This is part of a team. Watch, there'll be 3 of them." And we go, "Come on, Jeff." No, they're not. No, watch them. And then we'd find the next one. And then we'd find the next one. And we'd still be skeptical. "Come on, Jeff. There's these 3-man teams." And then we'd watch them. And they'd go behind the police lines. And they put their arm around the police officers and whisper in their ear. And then they'd go back over to the police line. They'd open it up. And the last guy through would turn around and go, "No, don't hurt me." And then go into the crowd and disappear. And so once we saw that, then we started looking at all the videos and we started being able to pick out teams who were coordinating all of what was going on all around the Capitol. And then we watched doors open and people would come in and then they'd seal the doors. And then a team of officers would come in and incite violence, get them all sandwiched in an area. And as soon as someone pushed back, they'd get it on video. They'd open up the doors and let them out. And then they'd come and charge them later with crimes. I've got a gentleman with me right now who I met in prison, a 23-year-old kid, got sentenced to 88 months. He walked in the building and he watched an old man getting beat. He actually tried to leave the building. They wouldn't let him back out until this group got clustered together. They started hitting him with shields. And at one point, he touched one of the shields, grabbed it, and then immediately let go. That was an assault that they hit him with. He watched an old man getting beat with a stick. He pushed that officer off of him, grabbed the guy, pulled the guy to safety. And that was an assault that they hit him with and gave him an 88-month sentence because he refused to bet.
And little did they realize that they didn't even have to put that kind of work into it because they could prosecute for nothing. Enrique Tarrio comes to mind, former leader of the Proud Boys, who's serving 20 years, and he was not even there. I believe he was in Florida on January 6th. And because he sent a couple of text messages going, "Hey, represent the United States of America, go get them." They said that he was inciting a riot and sentenced him to 20 freaking years. He wasn't even there. I pray that I haven't heard yet. Did he get pardoned? Is he out? Do you know?
So he got a commutation. There's a few people who still have yet to get full pardons. He's out. We did a march up here the other day in the midst of CPAC, right back up on the Capitol over to the east side. Antifa was out in full force to protest. And they got their soundbite that they wanted. They got a camera shoved in his face, and when he pushed the camera out of his face, they arrested him for assault. So they got their headline on NBC. He was released immediately. We've seen him since. He's fine. He does deserve a full pardon, as do the rest of the guys there. Dominic Pizzola, Stewart, all these guys deserve a full pardon. There still are men inside, though. Jeremy Brown, I've heard word he might be out today, but there's still guys that are being held for January 6th, even though Trump has issued a full pardon. There are crimes that have come up because of January 6th. They went into their investigation of January 6th and came up with new charges on different things. Now, they were being held because of January 6th, and now anything that they pulled from that is evidence, fruit of the poisonous tree. It should not stand in court. But there's still, at this point, I believe 5 or 6 men that are still being held, who are Jan 6 political prisoners who have been pardoned and have yet to be released.
They'll find they can find anything, and I know from experience. The police report that was read in court after my arrest that happened, and that's another story for a different time. One point I said, "Don't push me." I brought my hand up like this. I said, "Don't push me," to a sheriff's deputy. Because I did that, I assaulted a police officer and I threatened them, or a law enforcement officer. So it could literally be one of these folks you talked about that are still in jail or still in prison, haven't been released. It could have been they said, "I'm not going to eat this food." They pushed the tray back. Oh, he threw the tray at me. We're adding 5 years to the sentence on top of whatever else he had there. So they hold people there. And another thing that they've done too, and I knew they were going to do this. I knew it. And when I say they, I'm talking about these people in these positions of prison guards, administrative staff, and so on, who are fully on board. They love their little cushy government job and their little retirement and their little everything's on the left. That's given them all these great things. They want to protect their phony baloney jobs, so they're going to do everything they can to make it as miserable on you as possible. Plus, add in all the good people who were serving in law enforcement at one time have been fired because they wouldn't take that COVID shot. The good people, that was a way that they got rid of them, and they were replaced by people who are all on board. I'll do whatever you tell me, Mr. Leftist politician. I'll do whatever you want us to do because we're all on board with your agenda. That's who is running these jails and prisons now. The good people who were there at one time, most of them have been ruined all over that whole COVID crap. Never forget that. So they can trump up just about anything. But when I knew everybody was going to be pardoned, I prayed for that. I please President Trump, follow through on your promise, and he has. But I knew that they were going to be released in the middle of the night when there's nobody around to help them. They have no money. They literally have the clothes on their back. Patrick Whale, who has become a friend of mine who I had on the show, he was the last Californian to be arrested, by the way. He said that they have not even given them back the money that he had on him that they took. They did not give that back. What happened to that money? So I don't know how much it was. But the point is, in the middle of the night, they released him in the middle of nowhere with nothing, no help, nowhere to go, no cab fare, no place to stay. And thank God there was a Christian group. He said, "I don't know who they are. I don't know where they came from. They didn't give me a lot of information, but I know they were Christians because they said they were." And they were there. And they delayed the release of Patrick Whale for 12 hours just to make it difficult on these people who were there waiting for him to get released. And they waited 12 hours. He goes out there and there's all these people there and they're praying with him and welcome and you're free and we're going to take you to a hotel. We're going to get you some clothing and some good food and you're safe now. And they got him transportation on private jets, part of this Christian organization. I don't know who they are. Flew him back to his home. You know who they are? Who are they? Because they're my new heroes.
Yeah, it's a J6 Road Home project. Gary Haven, who is a billionaire from Texas, actually again, the way God works, we ended up down on his ranch a few weeks back. He invited us down. He was amazing. Him and his wife, they cooked for us. They put us in their guest house, and he did an interview with me um, on our live stream, and then put me on another podcast. Yeah, it gave me and another guy some money to help out, and yeah, he's been fantastic. What he did, so the Jan 6 Road Home project, they basically got together and said, "Hey, there's hundreds of guys spread across the country. Exactly what you said. They're going to dump them out there on the street. They're going to have no place to go."
I knew they were
Um,
going to
and
do that.
and we were worried about Antifa coming and picking them off in the process. And so
Mhm.
Suzanne Monk, Trennis Evans, and a whole host of other people, Jenny McCombs out of Texas, who was actually building a tiny home community. If you go to the Jan 6 Road Home Project, she is down in Fredericksburg, has an inn, and she is building tiny homes for guys who have lost everything. And you can go donate. Dr. Phil's been down there, CNN, right by Lukenbach's down there. It's an amazing place. I got to go visit. I was offered to live there before. Found me super cute girlfriend, so I'm good at the moment. But I would have been down there living otherwise, but I wanted to go down there, help out, see what they had going on, and just amazing people. So yeah,
It's
they had got
Jan 6, JAN, the number 6, Road, ROAD, Home, HOME, Project,
I might be screwing that up. That might be J6 Road Home, I believe.
J6 Road Home. Okay.
What up, babe? We'll get
I
you back
want
to you.
I want to get
That
them on. When
uh,
you get that information, please text it to me. I want to get them
American
on.
Relief, APR, American Patriot Relief is another one that's put on by the Middletons. They are working in conjunction with that group. So APR it's a couple of the Middletons who were praying together on the Lower West Terrace right by me when head to head they were down covered up praying when Mark was attacked from behind by an officer hitting him with a stick. Jaleese, little 5'2", 50-some-year-old Jaleese, who is disabled and blind in one eye, put her hands up to stop the stick from hitting her husband. A 6'2", 250-pound cop cried on the stand trying to claim that Jaleese Middleton tried to pull him over the barriers. They were sentenced to 24 months and 30 months, respectively. They said, "Screw you. We are going to stay true. We are not going to take a dime. But what we're going to do is we are going to go out there. We're going to speak about this, and we're going to raise money for other Jan Sixers." So for the last 4 years, all they've done is go out there and speak, raise money, and help put money on people's commissary, help them with attorneys. They haven't taken a dime. They've spent their own money. They're about almost completely wiped out at this point, but they are strong in their faith. He was a pastor at one point. This has become their ministry, and I met them down there for the first time because I couldn't travel. I had restrictions while on bond, but I got to meet them. They're amazing people, and so American Patriot Relief, and it's a J6 Road Home. If you go online, Google that J6 Road Home, um, you will go ahead and find exactly, yep, j6roadhome.com. You will find that. You will see exactly what they have going on. Go down to Fredericksburg. It's the Full Moon Inn. Go down there, spend the night. Their bar there is the 1776 bar. It's amazing. Talk to Jenny. You will meet Jan Sixers down there. You will hear the truth. You'll hear some great music, have some good food. The place is magical. It is touched by God.
That's
It,
where again?
that is down in Fredericksburg at the Full Moon Inn in Fredericksburg and the 1776 bar. Yeah, it'll change your life. Go down there and visit. Go spend a night. You won't ever want to leave. Um, the rest of us, if you want to help in any way, find people's stories. Find Jan Sixers. Um, other than those two organizations, I always there's a few others that are great. But go check out people's Give Send Go. That's where you'll find Jan Sixers who you can donate to directly.
And the best, I'm glad you're using Gifts and Go too, because that's the only Christian conservative crowd fundraising site. That other one, forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it ever even existed. Never use it or utilize it. So Gifts and Go is awesome. You got a page there because I'm sure there's some people watching now who are like, I gotta help him.
And I appreciate that. Yep, it's my Gibson Go / help Brian Mock, BrianMock.
Help
If
Brian Mock.
And I definitely appreciate any support. Right now it's going towards, it's nothing frivolous. It's going towards putting gas in the tank, place to stay, food in my belly, and it's to be here and fight. It's here to fight these assholes. To be quite honest, it's here to get the truth out. Um, it is, I want this exposed. I want the swamp drained. What's really interesting too, is I've noticed, we came up here. Parking's really great in DC now. Traffic ain't what it used to be. Uh, Doge is clearing some folks out of here.
Isn't that awesome?
It's fantastic. I want
Yes.
this place to be town.
Yeah.
Good time to buy property in DC.
There you go.
There's a lot, I think 15,000 new listings in DC right now.
We just
Uh,
had Leo Zaki on the show with Sam Anthony from YourNews.com, and Leo Zaki is running for governor of California, and he busted that news out probably just a couple hours ago on my other show, where he said that people don't realize that there's a glut on the market now of homes, of people running away, getting out, and you could, like you just said, you can pick up some really, and give it another 6 months, it'll be rock bottom prices right now to buy in DC.
I love I grew up here, and actually, everybody I grew up with got priced out of living here. So I absolutely love it. I hope it bottoms out. I hope all of them. At this point, you know what? They all stole money from us to get that. I
Yes.
hope they all have to start over. I
I
hope
have
they all have. You know what?
zero sympathy.
All
I hope
this,
they
all
start over after their prison sentence, because many of them need to be incarcerated.
you know
They
what I
need
think
to
is a
pay for
great.
their crimes against us.
All those jobs that those illegals had, I feel like these guys should do. I think it would be very productive of all of these guys and the ones that made money off of these guys to go wash some dishes, mow some lawns, roof some houses. I feel like that would be a very productive use of their time.
I like
That's
that.
the jobs they should have. They can pick some apples. I like apples.
Yeah.
So pick some
Uh,
apples.
well, you're extraordinary, and the fact that you came on my little old show just means the world to me. And after seeing you at CPAC, I was like, oh man, there he is. I just I want to see great things happen for you. I want to see, like Job in the Bible. I want to see he got back twice what was taken away from him. I want that and more for you.
Thank
And you've said a couple of things. You're obviously a believer. Um, and you also said one thing earlier, that only military people call them clips. Everyone else calls them magazines. Did you serve?
I did not serve. That is my only regret in life, quite frankly. I was a week away from signing up in the army, and I got scholarship money for school, and went off and wasted that time because I've never used a bit of it. Yeah, that's my one regret that I have. But
I gotcha. Well,
it's support.
I'll tell you what, you're serving our country now. You are in tremendous ways, and your honesty and forthrightness and courage. And courageous is contagious. Your courage is going to do great things. The Lord, may He use you very effectively. I pray that for you, my friend, and thank you for spending some time with me here on Do Not Talk.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I appreciate it, Charlie.
All right, buddy. Help him. Normally, about now, I ask you to help my show at Venmo.com. There's a little QR code, Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. But I'll tell you what, anything you might have thought about giving to help this show stay on the air, give it to Brian instead. GiveSendGo.com/Brian, or help Brian Mock. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God. Missed my cap. There we go.